Hello again, travellers, and welcome to episode 8 of the Pro Wrestling Journey. If you're a returning traveller, welcome back. If you're a new listener, welcome. We hope that you choose to stick around. My name's Sean.
And I'm JP, and we are the hosts for the most that are going to make your journey as exciting but as comfortable as possible. So strap in, folks, because as ever, we've got a whole load to get through.
Please spread the good word. Tell all your friends they can find us across all major platforms.
And hey, even your smart speaker knows who we are. All you need to say is, Alexa, play the Pro Wrestling Journey. And by the way, folks, if you use Apple Podcasts, we'd appreciate that 5-star review. It helps your boys climb the list.
In today's episode, myself and JP had the pleasure of speaking with, in our opinion, the next ICW Women's Champion. She is the beautiful Bruiser. She is the sin of professional wrestling. She is part of the most dominant tag team in women's British wrestling, as part of the She-Wolves, and don't you forget it. I am, of course, talking about the British wrestling star, Molly Spartan. Molly was kind enough to sit down and have a great chat with us about her pro wrestling journey and a lot more. This will be part 1 of a 3-part special with the beautiful Bruiser. So, without further ado, we shall jump straight into our conversation with the sin of professional wrestling, Molly Spartan. I'll just jump in with a wrestling question straight away. So, when did you start watching wrestling, and what were you watching at that time?
So the weird thing is I think the majority of people, when you ask them that, it's usually like a cousin or a family member, especially with roughly about my age. It's always they got a VHS or they ended up stumbling upon something, where for me, it was actually like I discovered it myself. But I discovered it because when I was young, we used to have these like black Telly West boxes that had red digits on them. And I believe it was channel 21. It may have been 22. Please don't come at me, internet. It was early 20s.
What was it?
It was the channel, it was Cartoon Network. And as a kid, and still am, very much Cartoon Network, loyal and true, like, loved it, and I became, and still am, and you could ask Casey, Wolfie, anybody, I am one of the biggest Powerpuff Girl fans you will ever come by. Like, I have a tattoo, my finisher's called the Chemical X because of the Powerpuff Girls. Like, it was the thing that made them special, makes me special. But yeah, so I would watch Cartoon Network, and on a Friday night, I would be like, my cousin would come and babysit me, my brother and my mum and dad would go out for the evening. And at 9 o'clock, Cartoon Network changed to TNT. So once the watershed kicked in. So of course, TNT famously hosted WCW. And I always remembered, like, for some reason in my head, the TNT logo was like rotating in the middle of the screen, and it would say like, we're coming into watershed, yada, yada, yada. This channel's about to turn into TNT. And I remember one night I was sitting, we had a kitchen like bunker in our kitchen, surprisingly. And I used to love sitting in the middle of it. I used to get in trouble all the time for it because there was chairs around the edges, but I like sitting in the middle of it. And there was one night where, for some reason, this screen that normally came up, which was the sign of change the channel because the cartoons are stopping, hadn't come up. And the next episode of the Powerpuff Girls had started. And for some reason, that night, I was like, yes. So I sort of like was like, oh, Powerpuff Girls, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it instantly changed to Bill Goldberg's big screaming face, just when he was doing, right? And I was like, and I like fell off the kitchen table, and I was like, what is going on? So I came up that time, my brother runs in, is like, what's going, because he hears some sort of commotion. And we sort of like, what is this? And we ended up watching wrestling, and it was WCW. Now, I'm not going to say I know exactly what it was on it or anything like that, because at that point, we didn't really know what this was. It hadn't been introduced to us. Majority of my cousins were girls, and they were quite girly where I was, and I was always like, I remember they gave me Barbies once, they're all Barbies, and I shaved all their heads kind of thing. So I wasn't really my bag, the sort of girly stuff. And yeah, we used to then, and then we obviously took it into the living room from the kitchen, because it used to be that kind of thing where we were the fancy house that had 2 different boxes. That was like the first time like splitting cable boxes. We were awfully posh. And I remember going in, and me and my brother would sit and would watch this wrestling. And again, there was nobody in my head that, apart from Goldberg, at that point nobody really stood out to me, because I was trying to figure out what this was more than anything. And I would remember like my mum would come home, and my mum and my dad would come home, and my mum for some reason used to love coming in and sitting and then just going like, my mum had the theory that whoever got hit first was winning. So she used to go, if he got hit, he's winning, she's winning. Like that used to be her theory. And she used to play the game of like, and if they didn't win, she was like, oh, that's different. And then it's a fix. And yeah, so that's sort of how we got introduced to it. But obviously that then developed, and we became more aware of things like WWF and WWE at the time. My brother became absolutely infatuated with The Rock, which he still is. Like, he genuinely has told me that the only reason he supports my wrestling career is because one day he will meet The Rock. So that's his, I'm going to meet The Rock one day, and it's going to be because of you. And I'm going to go, all right, okay.
Accepted your career path.
Like, what's that?
He's accepted your career path because he knows he's The Rock.
Like 100%. That was what went through instantly. It was like your sister's going to become a professional wrestler. I'm going to meet The Rock, and it's going to be because of her. This is
that's brilliant.
But I remember like he had this poster that cost him £1 from like Kinross Sunday Market. It was like that A3 laminated poster, and it was in the back of his door, and it was there so long that it only came down once he moved out. And it was like when it come off, you could clearly see the difference in the paint in the back of the door. It was so long. So yeah, he was The Rock, and I was Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously, which ironically I'm wearing an Austin shirt today. So he, like, I took many a rock bottom and he took many a stunner. But yeah, that's sort of, it was like a thing that we shared, and I love that we still do. Like, he doesn't watch it as avidly as I do, but he'll always like watch Mania, or he'll talk about this, or like even when like he recently just had, him and his missus had a baby, and I got him one of like the Rock baby grows that just has Just Bring It on it, and that was like throughout all the presents at our baby shower, it was all like cute pastels and woolen things, knitted by aunties, and then I had this Just Bring It black, Just Bring It baby grow, and Pegasus from Hercules, which was his favourite Disney growing up, like toys, and he was like, this was from my sister, this is the best present. How'd you know? And he was like, I just did, I thought he put it in. But yeah, so it's just, that's sort of how I sort of discovered it. And yeah, it was just a thing, me and my brother properly, like, that was our thing.
I was just wondering how did the backstage producing role in ICW, how did that come about?
So originally when I decided, it's weird. So there was a point in my life where, you know, that point in your life when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. Come to that decision that I wanted to work in wrestling somehow. But at the time when I was watching it, there was nobody that I related to, that I seen myself in. There was nobody my size. The closest was Beth Phoenix. But even at the same time, she was American, and she was this beautiful blonde glamazon, like, is the best description of her. Where everybody else was from, like, they were still doing model searches and diva searches through that sort of thing. And I just, when it came to being the wrestler, I never seen myself as being that. Like, I thought I would be rejected. I thought I wouldn't be wanted. I thought I was just a silly path to go down, just to be, weirdly in my head, knowingly told I'd be told no. So instead, I knew I wanted to still be part of it, so I looked at what they would look at regarding qualifications for their sort of creative or production side of things. So it was on like WWE, the jobs page, and looking at what they expected from their applicants that were sending things in. So one of the things was Bachelor of Honours in topics like television or film or script writing, etc. And so that's what I went for. Like I've got a Bachelor of Honours in television, and so I went to that. But while I was doing that, I ended up meeting Mark Dallas. And at that time, there was just part of me that was just like, I need to be part of this. Like I ended up stumbling across ICW through Billy Kirkwood, and he was like, you need to come to this, like, let's come to the show. It's basically ECW with a Glaswegian accent. And I was like, sound, let's go. And was just like came, seen one show and was like, I need to be part of this. So ended up sort of saying to them, look, with basically the degree I'm following, I can get you access to a camera or lights or microphones for free. And all you need to do is sign a bit of paper at the end each year for my work placement saying, I'll write what I've done and you just sign it. And then, hey, like I get what I need. I get my credits and everything that I need for uni. And you get a free camera. Because at that point in time, I mean, we were still in the Classic Grand and we were just moving to the garage. That was like the big jump, was going to the garage kind of thing. So it was still very much the early days of the birth and growth of what ICW is now. And so that's sort of how I became involved with that. The thing is, once uni had finished, I didn't leave. Like, I just ended up staying, and basically I'd become the girl that backstage could get people to do their promos, which I didn't realise was a difficult thing to do until I was in the, you know what I mean? Like, tell people, like, I remember my first night, I'd been given this promo list, and I was like, okay, we did the promos. I think I missed 2 on the list. And I was going up to Dallas, and I was like, this is what I've got. I'm really sorry, but I couldn't get, like, so-and-so just disappeared after the match, and so-and-so ended up, there was like, I was like, I just couldn't get them. I'm really sorry. Like, I'll be better. Anyway, wait, you only missed 2? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you can come back. Like, because to him, I was like, you got me promos? Okay, like, he was delighted because he thought, I'm going to give her this stupid long list just so maybe we'd get a wee handful. And I was like, oh, I missed 2. And he was like, you're staying. I was like, sound. And that's how I sort of got my job. And yeah, I became the girl that was shouting at them and telling them, like, get your arm up. Like, that was me for a long time. But yeah, it was this sort of like, after the conversation with Wolfie, where I say, look, I'll be student number 1, and then a year later, GPWA was born and stuff like that. There was a weird notion when I did the 8 weeks, where I was standing in the middle of the ring, and it's really strange to describe it, but it was weird being in a position where all of a sudden I realised I've always wanted to be here. This is exactly what I've always wanted to do. Yeah. But because society, for some at that point, I just feel didn't deem that I was what they wanted. It wasn't that I was uncomfortable in my skin. I was always confident in who I was and the shape I was and the build I was, and like, so I was saying, did all the pin-up stuff and that, so I wasn't embarrassed at what my own form looked like at all. If anything, I'm proud of, you know what I mean, the body that I have, which I think everybody should be.
Why would you not be?
Got you through, like, we got all, like, right now we're talking, your body got you through a pandemic. Like, right. Not that bad. Like, yeah, working on it is great. Like, trying to get yourself in better shape and things like that is great, but that's so that you feel better and you are, you know what I mean? Like, being in good shape isn't a bad thing, but yeah, like, it was weird being in the ring and all of a sudden going, this is where I've always wanted to be. And at that time, Piper Niven, Viper, depending on how you know her, was absolutely crushing it in Japan. Like, she was so, like, absolutely killing it in Japan. And the fact is that she was doing it with all the airs and graces and confidence of being herself. And that was it. Like, she was fully accepted for who she was because she was so just comfortably. She's one of the most beautiful people I have ever seen, inside and out. Like, she's just stunning. But she's no Kelly Kelly. I'm no Kelly. There's nothing against Kelly. Kelly's Kelly. Oh, there's a lot of Kellys.
They're that fast.
We're neither of us are her, but we are ourselves. And it was weird being there and realizing everything that I thought was going to be a hindrance to me being a wrestler was actually the thing that was going to tear me apart from everybody else. It was going to be the thing that people could focus on and sell and market, and everything about it. Everything about me as well was like, I am physically dominant. I am a strong, sturdy woman. And if you have someone like me and with someone like an Angel Hayes, you're probably going to get magic because we're so physically different that we both have very different offenses, and therefore the matches ain't boring.
The story kind of writes itself with that.
Aye.
I listened to Joe Hendry's podcast, and it was How to Be a Pro Wrestler, and he name dropped GPWA, and he basically said the message that resonated with me was, if you've ever wanted to be a pro wrestler, if it's something that you've actually really wanted to do, then you owe it to yourself to give it a try, because you don't want to go to the grave with what if questions. So I thought, I'm going to give it a try. And I was lucky enough, because I've heard some horror stories about trying to find a good school. I was lucky because I went to GPWA from the get-go. So I started off at a great school.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know for myself, I always say that it was the perfect school for me. Like, it had structure. Like, your first for us, it was an initial 8-week induction class. Like, I was student number 1 for JPWA, and I've told this story many times of this weird rom-com romance between me and Wolfie. And it started with the birth of the wrestling school. But it was, and that was before any romance had started. But it's that weird sort of thing where, for me, there was at least some form of structure that within you're expected to be able to do a certain sort of move set and things up to 8 weeks before you went on. And I know now there's more of it's the first class, then a second class, then you move into the higher class.
That was one of my questions. Was when I was training, somebody had tried previously, and they did say that it was just 8 weeks to begin with. They didn't have the privilege that I had, because I had 3 8-week courses. So essentially, I've had 6 months to get where you learned in 8 weeks. How hard was that?
Like, we were the guinea pigs, to be honest, but at the same time, when you look at the guinea pigs, there's 2 of us that are on the WWE Network now. So we did okay. Like, I actually looked at one of the original first photos of the first day, and myself and Kyle Chaos were in that photo, and it was just, and I messaged Kyle just saying, like, mate, I'm so proud of you. And he was like, I'm proud of you too. Like, it was that weird, like, oh.
I watched him today. The man's a machine.
Yeah, like, he's great. And he always has been. He's always just been this. He's like, Kyle is a person outside of the ring, is quite a shy individual. And you find that in wrestling a lot. There's a lot of actual shy people in the ring, and wrestling is where they get to be this extrovert. But yeah, he's been a dear friend for years. I've been trying to get him in places to wrestle, because I know when he gets in the ring, he delivers. He might be this kind of socially awkward, shy person outside the ring, but as soon as he walks through that curtain, he Kyle Chaos.
If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have a clue, but he is a very he's a dear friend of mine, and I always put him over. But like we were the first class, but at the same time, us moving in was just to basically, how I see it is how GPWA is structured is that it's to make sure everybody's clued up on the fundamentals of wrestling, of the things that actually make up a good wrestling match that you sometimes don't necessarily focus on. Like, we all love when Shawn Michaels hits a super kick. We all love when Taker hits a tombstone, but realistically, they all need to know how to bump and how to feed and how to roll. Rolling is a major thing. Like, I've had a lot of people say the same thing to me about, oh, I've always wanted to be a wrestler, but I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And my first question, and I always ask people, is, can you do a forward roll? And the amount of people that look at me and go, what? And I go, genuinely, can you do a forward roll? And they go, I think so. I went, then you've got more hope than you think. Like, things like forward rolls, and that's the thing, like, with GPWA, you don't have to be perfect. I'm like, I still can't do a kip up. Like, I'd try, but I'm very bottom heavy, so I just go bang and end up just sitting there going, all right, okay, let's try again next week. And it's not that I never stop trying to do it, because that's part of the excitement, is that I might be 6-7 years in now, but I'm still trying to learn something new.
And one of these days you'll hit it and it'll just be like,
oh my God, see when that hits, you'll all hear me. We'll be going out in the town and everything. Like, it's going to be a party when I manage to hit that kip up. But it's that way we are. Yeah, like with GPWA, because of how it's structured, it's not just to do. This is the thing. Like, I think a lot of people get frustrated with it. It's to do with our safety and your own. Mm-hmm. So the way that it's structured is that if you can't do up to a certain thing, it means that it's not a punishment, it's an order to better yourself. Like, there was classes where people couldn't do forward rolls, so they had to address why you're unable to do that. Is it to do with your fitness? And maybe it's not necessarily that, Christ, I'm an example. We're not going to we're not prejudiced against anybody of a bigger size. You can be the size of Kamala, but if you can do a forward roll, you're at least safe. But there's individuals that can't do it because of their size and stuff. So we need to address that sort of thing purely for your own health and safety. Because I've seen folk take very basic moves and get incredibly injured from the daftest things. So yeah, like, it is one of those things where but it's also not just, we've got to think about, wrestling's a two-way dance, you know what I mean? It's not it's not just a thing where if you're not safe, like if you're unable to do something, it means that you're also putting somebody else in jeopardy.
Yep.
So like when you eventually get into like the what we class as like the main class, you at least know when you're walking into that door, everybody can at least do this, if you know what I mean. Everybody's capable of doing these fundamental things that can make a really good wrestling match. You don't have to have the best cartwheel in the world. You don't have to be able to do sort of head springs and kip ups, but you do need to know how to forward roll. You do need to know how to do shoulder rolls. You do need to know how to do backward rolls in a safe way. You do need to know how to do certain things, because those certain things in the beginning classes are the proper basic foundations. And I think that's so important, and sometimes I feel like it is overlooked just so that you can get onto the next thing or get onto the next cool thing, where wrestling's not good if the basics are rubbish. You can hit the most beautiful drop kick in the world, but if you hit a forearm that couldn't knock a baby over, why on earth would people believe that you could take them in a fight? Because at the end of the day, that's what wrestling is. There's certain people that are, like, Angel Hayes is the perfect example, right? Me and her physically are incredibly different. But when she goes, there's part of you that's like, she could fight you and it could be like there's a certain switch, and she, you know what I mean? She can go.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is that there's no part of you that thinks, ugh, like, oh, it's wrestling, it's you're like, no, okay, right, sure. And that's what makes a good wrestler, somebody that you're like, could they, like, could they, I think they could take me in a fight. Okay, let's go. Yeah, that's one of the main things.
The Queen Bees, they ran riot in FSW for quite some time. I was just wondering, how much did it mean for you when you won the FSW Women's Championship from a staple of British wrestling in Lana Austin?
See, Future Shock was a very integral part of Molly Spartan being Molly Spartan today. Like, it was like one of the first places I'd truly taken a chance on me. Like, I knew at that point Chris Brooker was a guy that was booking Future Shock. And I knew the first booking he gave me was basically him being a good mate, let's say. Like, I'd worked for him before. He did the shows with like Rowdy Roddy Piper, and he brought DDP over the first time and did a couple of shows with Mick Foley and stuff. But I helped out with like sort of selling the merch and stuff like that, his shows, just trying to be a good hand. And I knew the first match was that, but I also knew that it was an opportunity for me to take this bull by the horns and make something out of this. So I had my first match, I think it was June or July with Lana Austin. And I didn't come out with a win the first time, but I definitely made an impression. So that, and at that point I just thought I had a good match, and I thought, you know what, I think I will get brought back. I think I've made a good enough impression. I thought maybe I'll get back maybe 2 or 3 times again. What I didn't expect was to be given a year-long run in a company that, like, it's a strange sort of thing when I say this, but like, being in British wrestling, like, I knew who Future Shock was, if that makes sense. There's so many different, but I knew and I knew who'd come from Future Shock. I knew the people that had held that title. So it was a massive thing for a company of that stature. And at that point, their locker room had, so they brought down Wolfie as well. But at that point, you had like Zach Gibson and James Drake and Ashton Smith and everything and T-Bone were like staples in this promotion when I went there. And now they're all on NXT UK or on NXT, you know what I mean? Like, It was an absolute incredible locker room to be in. Like, everybody was sound as well. It was a great place to work. Like, it was a nice environment. But yeah, when I remember when I was first told about the championship, being like, "Are you sure?" Like, because at that point I was still fresh-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like, I was just excited to be there and to get my teeth sunk into something. But to take off somebody like Lana was massive. But I genuinely think we really showed the Future Shock audience something different and something new, and that women could be like this. You know what I mean? They'd had the mouthy sort of heels in the past, but they never had anything like the Queen Bees. Having like me and Casey Owens and Jayla Dark, just sometimes haunting presences kind of thing, banding together and putting on absolute belting matches. It was just a different air, and people used to like the reactions we would get even when our music hit, which is still all the music for the She-Wolves down south. Just that wee piano bit at the beginning, deep, 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 like people would be like, "Brr!" Like, it was instant, just like, "I'm coming!" Like, and it still is. Like, in TNT, as soon as our music hits, there's an air change. It's like, oh yes, a bit of carnage is coming. Like you were either excited for the carnage or you were like, oh god, they're coming to ruin it again. Like, but being able to like really sink my teeth into it and really sort of become the beginnings of who Molly Spartan that you see today is. And this isn't the final form. Let's say I'm still a Pokemon. I've gone up from the first one. I think I'm in my second stage now, but there's still more to learn, and there always is. You should always, like, the minute you stop learning and the minute you get bored from learning something new is the minute that you hang up your boots. You either hang up your boots because you've stopped learning and you've gotten bored, or you hang up your boots because you're broken and you can't put your boots on anymore. Mm-hmm. That's the choices in wrestling. Like, there's not an in between. Or you get somebody takes your boots away from you. They're like, you don't get to play with them anymore. Leave them alone. Like, that's the choices. Like, it's that kind of thing where I think even with like Edge and Daniel Bryan, like, they got their boots taken away from them. That's what happened. Like, they still wanted to play, but like they got their boots taken away from them, which is why them being back and being in wrestling is so exciting.
You've brought up Edge. I've got a wee bit on Edge. I am an Edge head. Now the thing is, I got into Edge just after he'd gone, so I had to kind of. He'd retired, and I was a wrestling fan. Sort of left it for a while and then came back. And I decided that this guy Edge was fantastic, no realizing at the time that he'd retired. So I've listened to.
That was like the saddest day of my life. Like,
though? I still
my mum, genuinely, his retirement speech. My mum came through to the living room because I was still living with mum and dad at the time when it happened, and I remember I was at uni and my mum came through, and she thought somebody had died. Like, genuinely was like, everything okay? Because somebody died, and I was just like, and like, he was my poster boy, like, in wrestling. Like, he's just brilliant. Like, and I like, it's weird. Like, we did the tour with him with Inside the Ropes, and I genuinely think it was only booked to see me flustered because I'm as cool, calm, and collected at most times.
One of the questions I've got written here is: did touring with Edge get Molly Spartan flustered?
That's the thing. I'm all usually cool, calm, and collected with all the guests. Like Taker, Foley, Michaels, Brett, I can go on and go on of massive names, people who are so influential in the business. And I genuinely think they booked Edge purely to see me go. And I think it's a Scottish thing where if you sort of rib each other and poke fun at one another, it's kind of like a term of endearment, as long as you're not going too brass, like too close to the bone. It's kind of, so I would try and, like, I remember he loved these donuts, a place called Off Bean Donuts in Ireland, and he loved these donuts so much that he would go and find them, and he bought us a box of donuts as well to share with the crew. But for some reason, he'd bought his own private stash, and then he ended up taking one of ours. And I was like,
we'll having it.
So I thought, I'm going to pretend I'm raging at him, right? I'm going to pretend and be raging at him and be like, that's the donut I wanted. Like, you've had these donuts. What the man, like? And I tried to be angry at him, and the car drove up, and I was like, I'm ready. And then as the window round down, Fiona Loughran is our transport sort of manager, right? And she genuinely said, I could see you were trying to be like,
What's your deal here, Copeland?
His window just went, meh, and you seen him, you just went, I'm raging at you. Like, your face beamed, and I was like, I know, it's so bad. I can't not be like, oh my God, it's Edge. But it was so good. He's such a nice man. Like, that's the best. Like, he's genuinely so sound. He's so welcoming. He's so, like, he's a very warm person, is how I describe it. Like, you instantly want to, like, be around him because he's just so generally nice. And like he would come, like there was a point we had to travel by train, and like Edge and Kenny sat in the first class bit, and we all sat where the regular folks sit, but I'd gone and got like a proper feast for the rest of the crew, and like we had these 2 tables with snacks all over it and drinks and all sorts. We were having a great time. He says Edge walked down the train and he just heard people laughing, and he instantly was like, "That's my group." So he came and found us, and he came and sat with us. So there's a photo of us all together when Kenny's in first class and we're giving Kenny the middle finger, going, he came and sat with us. That's having a proper laugh. So yeah, he's just a I'm so glad that anybody that I've met who's genuinely been a proper influence on my career have so far been sound and have been lovely and warm, and like have been able to approach them and actually go, by the way, I wrestled too, and you're a bit like, I have to say, I didn't realise, it's that weird sort of thing. Of course I realised Edge was an influence, like just, but I didn't understand like how, like, I didn't even realise to the extent until I was watching so we obviously make hype videos for our guests at Inside the Ropes, and I sat on the first show in Ireland and they played the hype video, and I sat there and went, oh my God, I do everything. Like it was that point where I was like, I think I've stolen everything. Like even little, not stolen everything, but there was just wee things. Like I remember the first title I ever got, which was from Future Shock, and instantly I lifted it up and I put it on my shoulder and I would kiss it, and I didn't even at that point in time even think, oh, that's a homage to Edge. And then I watched this hype video and was like, oh, that's where I get it from. Like it just felt like it was something I had. Like it just felt natural for me to do that. And then I watched Edge. That was an Edge thing. I didn't even like. It's just in my subconscious. Because he's such a big influence, he's such a monumental part of my love of wrestling that I subliminally just stole everything. Well, I didn't steal everything. I pay homage to the people that I love in wrestling.
I've got a couple of big questions here, Edge related. What is your favourite donut?
See, I like just a nice plain donut with like a raspberry filling. Like is quite a
the typical strawberry jam.
No, nasty. No. Strawberries overhyped, right? Strawberry jam is overhyped. Raspberry all the way. All the way.
We can be friends.
But that's the majority of things. Like most things that are flavoured strawberry, I'd rather they were flavoured raspberry.
Aye.
So
by the way, for this, I will shout out Billy at the Scottish Wrestling Network, who interviewed you just recently and lives 5 minutes up the road from me.
Lovely.
Yeah. He talked extensively about the bat signal. I want it on the record that I had messaged you before that went out, absolutely expecting to be blanked. So you were telling this really lovely story about how you'd gone in to ask him if he wanted something to eat, and he was on the phone to Beth, and he was like, "Here, Beth, this is Molly," and handed you the phone.
Yeah, so we'd gone, because he'd been so nice and stuff, and he'd like I was saying, like he went away and bought us all donuts and would just do things like that. And the weird thing is, it wasn't like he was trying to impress us or be like our, like that was just something that he does, you know what I mean? Like he just wanted to contribute. He wanted to be part of, like, we were the crew as a group. It wasn't, because sometimes, like, and it's not against the talent at all, but sometimes there is this clear divide of, they're the talent, we're the crew. And that's fine. I've dealt with tours like that. And that doesn't mean that they're mean or nasty or rude or anything, but there's just that clear talent, crew. Where he was a guy that just, he was part of the crew that sort of tour. Like, he was that kind of guy. Foley's the same. Goldust, like Dustin, is exactly, they're just that kind of the people that just, all that's really different is they're the new member, if you know what I mean.
I got it.
Yeah, so because he'd been so sound and stuff, we went and got him like the only, like, he doesn't really drink, but the only thing he will drink is like a whiskey now and again, like a nice whiskey. So I knew there was like a really good sort of out like spirit shop in town. It wasn't like the whiskey shop. It's another one, a sort of local Glasgow one, and it's always got like a really lovely, extensive collection of whiskies and gins and all sorts. So I went and said, well, I'll go get him a whiskey, and then we got like the kids some things like little like bedtime books with like a wee toy to go with them each, and then we got Beth a scarf and stuff, just so that he wasn't just showing up with this nice bottle of whiskey and went, women gave me that. Like, you know what I mean? It was like everybody gave us something, and
I've got this. You've got Jack.
Yeah, so we got them all a little something, and yeah, so because of that, he'd went and got food and stuff like that. He phoned Beth and was like, and he'd shown her like, hey, they got the kids these, and it was like proper Scottish theme. So like one of the storybooks was about Nessie, so a wee Nessie toy came with that, and another one was about a Highland coo, so a wee Highland coo came with that sort of thing. So it was very Scottish, but you know what I mean. And yeah, he just phones Beth Phoenix, because well, it is his wife. He's like, hey, this is Molly, and at that point in time though, he doesn't. I don't realise who he's talking to. He just go, but passes the phone over, and yeah, just Beth Phoenix. One of the only women that at the point in time that I decided I wanted to work in wrestling was one of the only women that I have any, like, I feel like there was any connection with, or I feel any sort of relative, like, mirroring image kind of thing. Although, like, I know I don't look like Beth Phoenix, but at that point in time, she was just. That point in time, Beth Phoenix wasn't Kelly. That's the best way I could put it. She wasn't that, and that was the closest representation that I could see myself in. So it was just this big, like, and I honestly was like, I didn't know what to say because I wasn't like in the zone to go, hi Beth Phoenix, you're a legend. Like, what? Let's go. Like, cool. Sure. And yeah, but she was just super lovely, and it was one of those weird things where it was so nice to see, like, how comfortable and how loyal and trusting their relationship is, at the fact that he's in a venue in Glasgow with a crew that is 50% women, 50% men. It's one of the most diverse, I think it's one of the most diverse wrestling themed crews inside the rope is. And it's not been deliberately done that way. It's just we're all good at our jobs, so that's why we've got our job. For him just to phone his wife and be like, here's another woman, talk to her, and that's just cool. Like, that's fine, because that's just, and it's that weird sort of thing, like, that very much reflects on how me and Wolfie are. Like,
that was my next question. Can we expect Wolfie and Molly to be the Beth and Adam of ICW? I can prove it. I've got it written down.
Yeah, no, I believe you. But I mean, very much, I would like happily take that as what, if somebody was to describe us as that would very much be like a big compliment, because their relationship is so similar to how ours is and how ours works. But yeah, like I think about it this way, like, and there was one time that Wolfie was away down to the UK PC, and he drives down with Kaylee Ray and Piper Niven. And his car was left outside, and I'd like cleared out wardrobes of clothes and stuff. So I put them in black bags, and instead of having them cluttered around the house, I put them in his car, thinking that's away. And it dawned on me, I was like, oh my God, it looks like I've kicked Wolfie out of the house.
People think you've kicked him out.
I filled his car with black bags, and he's just driven away with two women. Like, but at the same time, I was just like, that's it. Like, there was a genuine Christmas. Was it last Christmas? No, not Christmas Day, but the Christmas before. That or it was roughly about them, that I got a message from a fan saying, by the way, do you know Wolfie is out shopping with Piper Niven? I was like, all right. Like, I was like, all right. And I was like, did you get anything nice? And he was like, yeah, no. And it was because Piper had found out that she was required for more on-screen stuff than first told, so she needed other clothing that was more sort of gimmick clothing. So Wolfie went, well, we'll go, there's a shopping centre not far, we'll go there. So he took her to the shops.
As you do.
But obviously fans are just wanting gossip and a wee bit of drama to happen on the internet. And he's shopping with another woman. I went, you mean the other woman that looks like it could be his twin sister ripped away from at birth? Like, they look like the male and female equivalent of one another. Like, yeah, it's cool.
I would never have thought that, but now that you've said it.
Can I get in it? Like, could you, like, 100%, if Piper was kicking about NXT, right, and was like, you better shut it or I'll tell my brother, and then Wolfie came in the picture, you'd be 100%, you'd be like, oh, why did we not see that they were brother and sister? Because that's how they act. That's how they act as well. Like, they're so, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm happy, like, I'm comfortable in the fact that Wolfie has genuine relationships with women that are friendships. And there is, I'm very much of the case, and I always have been like this. I've never had, like, the jealous streak that I've thought, well, he must be away doing like, no, like, there's no point in living. I found it an unnecessary emotion. Like, there's no point in living your life that way, because then how could you ever trust anybody? Like it's that kind of thing. And also, if anything was to ever happen, then you know what? I deserve better. That's always been how I've treated it in life, and it's that way. And yeah, like, we have a very trusting relationship, and you have to in wrestling, because there's times where I'll be in a locker room with 20 other guys, and there's only me and one other girl, and that's just how it is. And
just get on
it's
with
the same. There's, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you need to be like that.
We are going to end things there for this part of the conversation. I would just like to take this time to thank the beautiful Bruiser, Molly Spartan, for coming on and having such a great chat. She was very kind with the amount of time she gave us. She had plenty to say, and she has a lot of great insight, a lot of great stories, and we're just so happy that we can bring this to you. Again, thank you, Molly Spartan. It was an absolute pleasure. For any podcast out there that may be looking for a guest, I would fully recommend the beautiful Bruiser, Molly Spartan. She has a wealth of wrestling knowledge. She has plenty of great stories to tell, and she'll be one of the best guests that you will come by.
Thanks again, Molly Spartan. But that's us reached the destination for this segment of the journey, so thanks all for listening, stay safe, and we'll catch you at the next stop for more of the Pro Wrestling Journey. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me. Stay safe, guys, and I shall see you on the next one.